You'll notice in our hymn book, from page 6 on, no chords are given. You must learn to analyze the harmony for yourself. We will illustrate this by hymn Hiding in Thee on page 9. To analyze the harmony, we accumulate into one hand all notes of the treble and bass clef. We have here an F and a C, and we have in the left hand an F. We discount any duplicated notes, and we have an A. The three notes together give us the F major chord. So we put a capital letter F. We still have an F right here. Here we have B flat and an F. We have an F here and a D. We find our combination does not make a triad. We have to invert till we have all thirds. Here we have all thirds. B flat, D, F gives us the B flat chord. B flat. Here we have F and A, and we have an F. We discount that. We add the C. We have a major triad on F again. Capital letter, F. Still F. Now, we have C, G, a B flat, and an F. We must be sure to include all notes. We invert, and we find that we cannot invert to all major thirds, or all thirds of any size. So that means that we have something in that chord that doesn't fit. We'll notice that we have an F chord here, F, A, C, and we have an F, A, C right here. So we notice that we're moving from this position of the F chord to this position of the F chord through the note that lies in between. This tone is called a passing tone. Most often, passing tones, especially when they're in the melody, are reinforced by a passing tone in some other voice. We notice this member in the tenor is moving by step down to this member of the F chord. So those two are passing tones. Recognizing that they are passing tones, we know then that they do not affect the chord. This does not represent a change of harmony. What we have to be careful of when we play the rhythm bass in the three-note chords is that since this is still passing tones between F chord, we add only members of the F chord so that there will be a dissonance there. So passing tones do not affect the underlying harmonies. So we have F for this whole measure. In this measure we have a B flat, an F, a C, and a G. And we find again we cannot invert into successive intervals of thirds. So again we have something there that does not belong to the chord. We find here that if we go on to this note, E, B flat, C, G, we can invert to all thirds. We have a C chord with a seventh added. This note F is what we call a suspension. A suspension is a tone that holds over as the rest of the tones move to members of a new chord. This being the suspension, we must consider the tone that it moves to as the chord member when we analyze this chord. C7. We call it roughly C7. There are actually 7 different seventh chords on C, but when we say C7, we're referring to the one generally found on the 5th scale degree, which will be a major triad with a minor third on top, the C7. So, recognizing that this is the suspension, we know that we have changed the chord add a suspension, unlike the passing tone, which does not affect the chord. So here we have a C7 with this resolution, we call it, moving to the E. Now here we still have the C and the B flat of the C7 chord, but we have this D up here. There's no D in the C7 chord. So again we find another type of dissonance. Here we find E moving down to the D and back up to the E. That's what we call a lower auxiliary or neighbor tone. Again, since it's a neighbor tone or auxiliary, neighbor tones do not affect the underlying harmony. So it is still C7. Now we go over here, we have a C and a B flat. We still have a C and an E. C, E, B flat, but no G. Here's another factor of harmony. It is that oftentimes a seventh chord will omit the fifth. We don't really miss that tone. The chord sounds quite complete in itself. So we have C7 with a suspension. We have a C7 with an auxiliary or lower tone. We have an incomplete 7. The best harmony lesson you'll ever find in one measure. Here we have F, A, C, F chord. Now, here we have two Fs. Soprano and alto are together on F. And we have another F in the bass clef, so we have three Fs and one A. We have a single interval of a third. Here again, we learn another factor of harmony, in that in some instances, a triad itself will be incomplete. 3 roots and 1/3. That happens for better interest in voice leading. Voice leading means that the alto and the tenor and the bass want to be as interesting a line as the soprano itself. So here we have an incomplete triad. Here we have the B flat chord, B flat, F, D, B flat. We have the F chord and another B flat chord. F chord, still F chord, and each one of our inversions of the F chord. C, E, G, C chord, F, A, C inverted becomes the F chord. G, D, B natural, F. That B natural says that for the moment, we are, for that chord, not still in the key of F. Actually, we've gone for that single chord to the key of C, and we find another element in harmony, that being occasionally for interest, a chord will be used that is not found in that key. We invert, and we have a G, B, D, F. G, 7. C, E, G. C, E, C, B flat, another incomplete dominant 7, C7, and F, so on. No other particular problems in this hymn to finish analyzing it, except for right down here. We have on one single beat a harmony with 2 different chords in it. F, F, 2 Fs here, and an A, an incomplete F triad. And then while we still have the 2 Fs, we have a B natural and a D. B, D, F. What chord is this? Well, remember our point of departure is always the major triad. A major triad on B whole step, half step, whole step. Is B, D sharp, F sharp. So, to get this, we have to lower the third and the fifth of the major triad. Major triad with lowered third and fifth is a diminished triad. Show that small letter B and a little degree sign. Now we'll learn how to use these chords more favorably as we go along. The rest should give no problem for analysis. One other feature we should consider here, which leads us back to the hymn just before, What a Friend. Certain chord successions are needed to give expression to music. We call them cadences. A cadence to music is what dropping our voice at a comma or a period or even a paragraph is in music. The most common cadence of a key is the chord on the fifth scale degree moving to the chord on the first. We're in the key of F major. The fifth scale degree is C. We build a triad on that. We call that the dominant of the key. Domina meaning 5. It's the chord second in importance only to the chord on the first scale degree. Dominant, tonic. Dominant, tonic. Now that chord succession, coupled with a slowing down or stopping of motion. Notice here we have the C chord, C, E, G, and the F chord, F, A, C. Here we have that succession, C, F, or dominant to tonic, where the motion has stopped by this long value note followed by the rest. That's our breathing space halfway through the hymn. That's the most important chord succession that we have. But notice that that very important C chord is falling on the last half of the fourth beat of the measure. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this comes after 4, in the weakest possible rhythmic position. To reinforce that very important chord, we're going to play an extra octave on that C. That measure in this hymn, once we've learned to analyze it, will be played this way. C octave, common octave, C octave, and F octave to reinforce the cadence. We call this the authentic cadence. Going back to our hymn over here, we find our authentic cadence, C. Now you'll have to read the notes to see why I'm calling that a C chord. Before this C, we find the F chord. We notice that the F chord is so arranged that its fifth, the C, is in the base of the chord. When our authentic cadence, C to F, is preceded by the F chord with its fifth in the bass, it's even a stronger indication that we're coming to the cadence. That measure played would be C octave with the F chord, C octave, C chord, F octave, 2, 3. So that's the reinforcement of the cadence. All of that to explain why in this hymn those C's at these two places are circled, and why in the other hymn it's circled on the last half of the fourth beat of the measure.